You are listening to the B2B Marketing Mindset with Pete Monfre and Bill Lowell. We want to help demystify marketing to reduce risk, drive more and better opportunities, and grow your business. Are you ready to master marketing?
What's it like up there in the land of the Yeti?
It's actually beautiful today.
Ah.
So well, my beautiful and your beautiful might be different, but we have 50 degrees and sunny, so I'll
Right.
take it. So
50 degrees is beautiful in Wisconsin, just so you know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we're
anyway.
in the middle of summer. We're in the middle of summer. It's 50 degrees here.
Beautiful.
I'm teasing,
Well, let me see what the title is. That looks like we're ripping on consultants today.
No. We're gonna help people work with consultants, aren't we?
That's it. Absolutely. This is a big deal. I hope that if you're watching right now, you'll keep watching because this is a huge deal. I'm surprised we didn't think of it sooner to talk about it, but there's two parts to it. We're going to talk about the myths that surround consulting, right? It's almost a four-letter word, except for it has more letters, right?
Yeah.
But consulting, advisors, experts, hiring them, the myths about them, and then how to leverage them so that you have a good, successful engagement, which is what everybody wants, right? Excuse me. It's live. You can't edit that out. And so one of my favorite myths is they steal your watch and then bill you to tell you what time it is. I like that one. It's the name of a book, actually. But
Is it?
yeah, but what they're saying there is that they tell you what you already know. And I've actually heard people say that. I've actually had somebody say to me, why would I pay that much money for you to tell me what I already know? Now, look, I'll try to be graceful here, but let's just say that, no, he didn't. He did not know. And he did not know what he didn't know. But that's not what consultants do.
Yeah. And like I think it's important too, though. I mean, sometimes we do tell people something that they think they already know. It might be a modification to it, but like I said, if they're not going to hire you in the first place unless they have some doubts or have some curiosity about what's going on. So even if you can confirm something that the client's thinking, I think that's a good thing. It just depends.
Well, right.
But usually that's not the case. But
in practice, well, right. I mean, that cliche is often repeated, but then, yeah, in actual practice, like so many things, some of these myths are grounded in truth because a lot of them are actually talking about bad consulting, and there's a lot of bad consulting. But yes, confirmation of your ideas. I had a complete mental makeover by an associate of mine, David Baker. I urge you to look him up. And it wasn't that I learned anything new from David's books and his writings. And I told him this, by the way. I didn't learn anything new from you, but what was even better is it confirmed a lot of the things that I knew but maybe had been doubting or even drifting away from the things that I knew. And so, but I think that's one myth. I think, what's another myth?
Well, sometimes they think that either consultants are really, really too expensive or they're just for the big people. You know what I mean? Like only the
Right.
big companies can hire a consultant. And, I'm sure you agree with me. I mean, I think that's just not the case. It doesn't have to be expensive. And, sure you've done this too. I mean, there's times I've done work for hourly or write projects. So it doesn't have to be
Right.
something that is expensive. And by the way, even if it was expensive, I look at it as what's the cost that you were going to make a huge mistake, or what's the cost of you going down the road, or what's the cost if you took it in marketing terms of you doing all of this stuff, whether it's, you name it, putting yourself on the radio or doing something else. And then all of a sudden that costs you a lot of money. Sometimes it's hard to correct that. So,
Well, you almost took the wind out of my sails that I was going to add to your statement.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. You could do that. You were friends. No, but I was going to say that, sometimes, see, now I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I
Just
was
remind
saying,
me where we were.
this is the fun of having two older guys sit and talk, and then we forget what
Yeah,
we're talking about.
this
Is
is
good.
it.
That's a myth too. That's a myth that
That's why we're
Well, we were
work
talking
every.
about sometimes what's the cost of making a mistake, or
Yes.
what's the cost of going
So
down the wrong road. You know.
I was going to say that if you think they're expensive, you're probably not looking at it or working it or leveraging it. That's kind of the thing that we're saying. This is if you're not really leveraging them so they pay for themselves plus a multiple of that, then
Yes.
you're doing it wrong. Now you can argue, and I think I put this in the post, that it's kind of the consultant's responsibility in those cases if they take on those clients that need that kind of education to help them leverage the consultant. But that's I'm being a little idealistic there, really.
Right.
And oftentimes fees are such that you don't have time to teach the client and do the work. You got to pick one or the other. But
Right.
but I think that's a huge problem. And is it anyone's fault? Not necessarily, but it can certainly undermine what could be a very profitable and good relationship. That would be another one, is that consultants are sort of mercenaries that get flown in just for a short period of time.
Yeah.
Maybe not. If you want to get value, think of it in a longer term. Now that might sound self-serving, but
Yeah.
think about it. The more granular the knowledge, the more experiences, the more ongoing the nature. You don't have to keep bringing someone up to speed. And then you're also able to adapt to changing conditions as they come at you,
Right.
which you're not going to be able to do if you keep changing horses. You got different people. You're listening to 20 different opinions. Have you ever had that? So, man, I keep asking for advice and everybody says something different.
Yes. Yeah. So all of a sudden, you ask the question, how many people have been here before me? And if they tell you two or three, I don't know about you, but I run like heck because
That's not quite
until
enough.
yes, they're waiting until they get the right answer, and by the way, sometimes that's something we should talk about too, Pete. Sometimes you might have a president or a CEO, and maybe they do have the answer, but they need somebody from the outside to tell it to their leadership or their management or their
Well,
employees, and it gives them credibility.
yeah, absolutely. And you know what? A good consultant's going to back up whatever it is they're recommending with data. Okay?
Yeah.
There's this myth that consultants know the answer or are guessing just like you're guessing.
Yeah.
Not a good one. And again, there are bad consultants. Hey, I just learned that we have a 9-point how to leverage a consultant little easy click download thing that's going to be in the comments, and just nine ways that you can really squeeze every dollar out of us as consultants. But I think this idea that we know the answer, like I got it on a shelf behind me, right? But I'm not giving it to you until you pay me. All right.
Yeah.
I just have to walk back there. It's no problem. But I gotta write a check. No, here's the truth, right? Truth about marketing. Consultants, especially the good ones, they intentionally don't know anything, but they know the questions to ask. You want them to be objective. You don't want to come in with them thinking that they already know the answer. They know the questions, they know the process, they can facilitate individuals or teams to collaborate. Remember, we're talking about good consultants, right?
Yeah.
And lead to the answer, right? Together. So
And
we don't know the answer going in. Are you kidding?
well, and there, by the way, like you said, there are some that do. And unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, I mean, some of the really larger firms, they know the answers going in before they
Well,
even
if you're good, you
because
can
that's
get
what they're
close.
selling.
Yeah.
No, I'm being facetious, but and I have worked for some of the
Oh, you're
largest
talking about the
consulting firms.
McKinseys that put up a
Well, I
front
wouldn't
that.
mention anybody's names, but
Oh,
but but some people do go in with, and maybe it's something that maybe they've already done a lot of their research, or maybe but that's kind of their selling point. They're going to go in and sell what they've got.
well,
And
yeah, you're talking
and
cookie cutter, large scale,
yes,
everything, same solution. Again, it's like, yes, that's kind of the challenge with this topic, is that you can't say that those cliches are not necessarily true
right,
because we do see it a lot. Because oftentimes, hey, listen, to be truthful,
Yeah.
we're often cleaning up the messes of these bad consultants.
Yeah.
So good consulting, like what does that look like, right? A good
Yeah.
consultant's going to have a pretty clear, they're going to help you, by the way. They're going to be like, hey, we should
Definitely.
set a clear scope and have an agreement. And hey, let's set some KPIs. Let's set some key performance indicators. Run
Yes.
away from a consultant who doesn't want to be measured.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just full of good advice today.
No, that is really some great advice. And I love what you said. Make sure you've got your goals and some other things clearly articulated, and that it's very clear between the outside consultant and you. But by the way, too, if you don't know what it is that are your goals to put down, might be another consultant, or it might be a different type of engagement where maybe that's what you want to figure out with your consultant. But I always say, if you go into an engagement and you don't have those goals clearly articulated, just like you said, it's going to turn into a mess because it just keeps on going. The goalpost keeps on being moved,
Well, I think, we always strive to be useful on this program and give you tools that you could use. And so let's talk about what we mean by that: setting a goal, setting an objective, because everybody thinks they know what we're saying, but a consultant is going to have a real different idea of what a goal or objective looks like than you are. In fact, SMART goal that you may have heard of is getting close, right? But it's going to be very, very specific. It will not be vague. It will have numbers usually over time, right? Like real objectives. Okay. So, and again, it is the job of the consultant to, if you're not, don't be afraid to hire a consultant because you don't know this consultant secrets. A good one's going to help you figure this stuff out and walk you through it. They're going to have a process they can demonstrate, right? They might not have the answer, right? But if you say, draw your process on the board for me as to how you're going to solve this problem,
right?
They should be, no problem, let's go.
Exactly. Well,
right.
Or tell you that, maybe we don't have enough time, or maybe we don't have enough resources, or maybe the goal, talking about your SMART goal, maybe it's unrealistic to expect that I'm going to grow this company by 20% in the next 6 months. I mean, so those are all things to have down too, so you can objectively look at that,
Well, they'll still be able to draw their process. It's just that you might not be able to afford it or something. And here's one of the things: the process is the same, even if it's a huge project, small project. Process is the same. And the second thing is, I think what you're getting at there is in the old parlance back in the day when we wore onions on our belt, as was the custom at the time. That meant, something else. It's a yes man, I think is the terminology, where it was every idea the client had was a great idea. Because they're really there just to get the money. And so I did a video called Appeasement Marketing versus Results Marketing. You can find it on my blog. But it's, are we here to appease you, or are we here to get you results? Because a lot of times those look really different. So a really good consultant is going to challenge you, going to push back on you. They're not handling you with kid gloves. We're not here to be your mom, right? Bedside manner is not a thing in our business. Getting you to that extremely clear objective is. What else? Myth or how to leverage? What do you got?
Well, I'll give you one of each, but the other thing that I would say is both. But it starts as a myth, but you got to be careful because it also can help you with leverage. Only because I've worked for some of the largest, management consulting firms in the world before I started my own business, I kind of know. Sometimes there's something called a bait and switch. So you get the top person when they come in and they're talking to you, and you fall in love and you think, oh, this is going to be great. This person's going to really help me. And then when you start the assignment, whatever it is, there's other people doing that work. And
junior level people, less expensive people.
Exactly.
That's how you make money. I think it's prevalent in the large firms, maybe not as much in the very small firms. But then let me throw the opposite side of that, because we've also been clients. Like, we buy consulting, for God's sakes.
Of course. Of course.
So, the other side of that is, how are you able to foretell that you're going to get, a good match when you're hiring someone, particularly on that point, which I don't know if you can know until you've started.
Well, no, I think you can. I mean, I think, okay, so let's say somebody wants to engage you, Pete. I mean, they could say, do I get you, Pete, or am I going to end up with somebody else that's going to be doing the work, or somebody's going to be working with, So I think that can be very clear. And by the way, you asked how to leverage. I think that's another good leverage point. am I going to have the relationship with you or somebody else, or who else is going to be involved, or how is this going to work? I think you need to ask that question.
Well, I don't know if you remember, because this was a long time ago. I won't hold it against you if you don't remember. But when
Okay.
the agency was growing, we had this exact problem where everybody wanted to work with me,
Yeah.
and we had to hand them off to somebody else, or we couldn't even stay in business. And
Right.
it took us a while to figure out how to make that handoff in a way that was honest and transparent. And the way to do it was we actually brought those people with us from the very first meeting.
Exactly.
And so it wasn't really a handoff as much as, and I found that most clients understood that, we had a giant office to pay for. And so, I had a job. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I was always available to them, though. I mean, that's important
Yeah.
too. So if you're in a
Well,
situation where there is a handoff and you know it's coming, and that person that you like and can work with, but the senior is always available to you and also actively checking in with you, right? And really being
yes.
part of the
Yes.
process. I mean, we worked on client stuff back at the office
Right.
together all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean
And
that they're
by the
not
way,
involved.
I remember, I mean, and same thing with me. I mean, you still were looking over things. You were still not going to let something get out the door that you weren't totally satisfied. I mean, so
I lived at the office.
exactly, you were
It's true.
still involved,
I had a
but
futon in my office to sleep
there you
on.
go.
I did.
But it goes to your point, which I think is a really good one. If you're going to have other people, bring them in early on so that somebody knows. Oh, I see this other person's going
Right.
to be involved. And and I take the accounting relationship. So, like for example, I think for the most part, I think accounting firms do a really good job with that. I mean, we have one that we worked with for a long time. I mean, a lot of times, yeah, there might be a senior partner that's responsible for us, but then there's might be a manager or somebody else that's doing our taxes or doing our other stuff.
Right.
But we know them and we're working with them, and there's no surprise. That's the thing. There's no surprise.
Well, great example of this. I've been in this business a long time. I know how to do every part of the business. I can develop websites, I can shoot video, I can do all kinds of things, right? But I don't. Here's why. I can buy that talent for less money than I charge and
Exactly.
better talent than me.
Yeah.
And that's my responsibility to the client. You don't want me cleaning out your list. Okay? That's too expensive. And so when you have a hierarchy like that, this allows agencies, firms, even individuals to be more competitive because they can, the money that you're paying, which sometimes can be steep, doesn't always have to be, but it can be steep. It's focused on what counts. It's not busy work. You don't want consultants doing busy work. And a good one won't do busy work, by the way.
Right.
But you mentioned RFPs earlier, and I said we got to do a whole episode on RFPs, but I'd love to touch on that.
And for the people that have no clue what we're talking about, request for proposals, there's a lot of sometimes it's an RFQ, if you're in the construction trades, for qualifications.
Request for
Yeah.
qualifications.
But
a little bit better, but
I am, just to give you a trigger warning, I am so against this, just so you know, and I'm going to trash it, because in my opinion, like the request for proposals, we see a lot of people, they'll throw out, and I have clients that will do this. They'll send out 10 proposals or 10 RFPs to people randomly, or they get this list, and then whoever comes in with the lowest price gets the job, or the one that looks the closest. And in my opinion, and I want your point too, which we just talked about. In my opinion, you've just had the lowest common denominator of the expertise that you're going to get, because you've just whittled it down to price. And it's like, and you've said it and I've said it, we won't even respond. I won't even respond to an RFP. If it comes in the door, it goes in the trash,
Well, the best firms have learned, maybe through trial and error, that it's not worth it to try to reply to these RFPs. And so it deserves a whole episode, because there are many different facets to this, right? And many industries run on this RFP process. But understand, if you're on the if you're on the receiving end of an RFP, it's going to take a fair amount of work to put that together. And basically, if you're selling expertise, I think it works great for desks, I would imagine. But if you're buying expertise, the client has already prescribed the solution, because they want everybody to be bidding on the same thing. And so if everything's the same, what is left to talk about? The price. Puts everything is on the price. They might even tell you they have elaborate weighting systems, right, to convince you the price isn't the thing. You know what? Listen, you aren't going to win it. You're going to put a lot of time into it. You might win 1 out of 10. I think that's the average that I always hear. That seems to be my, back in the day. Yeah. And really, literally, if one comes in the mail, if that never happens anymore, usually it's email. I used to say I throw them in the trash, but now I say I command delete.
Yeah.
Because why? And again, the good firms, we have enough work that we don't have to jump through all your hoops. And usually the solution outlined in the RFP is not going to be good for the client.
It's
because why do they need me then?
Exactly. I mean, I've seen that so many times where it's like, are you joking me? This is what you're trying to get, and it's almost laughable. But it's like it's
sadly laughable.
Really, really, it is very sad.
My Sandler trainer taught me a thing to ask if you're ever sitting in a meeting and you're trying to see if that they have a problem that you can solve. Is there any pain here? I had an old guy that was really a nice guy. Had a good-sized business, pretty well-known founder here in Austin, and we're sitting down with him in his office, and I just can't seem to, everything's hunky-dory with this guy. I'm like, finally I said, this is what my trainer said, can I ask you a question? Why am I here? And this is the only time this ever happened to me. He said, I just love talking to people and learning about them. Okay.
There you go.
And then I did hang around for a little bit and got to know him a little bit. But
hopefully he had good coffee or good snacks for you. So, Can I mention one more thing on the RFP, and then we should switch to like how can you do
how to leverage?
Yeah. So the other thing that kind of bothers me, and one of the other reasons why a lot of good consultants don't partake in the RFP process, is because somebody's going to steal their stuff. So it's like, and when I was younger, we did a little bit of that, but it's like, and then all of a sudden I would see like the one that they gave it to for the lowest price, they gave them our methodology, and I'd go, well, I just handed them a ton of free.
You were saying you didn't steal it; you gave it away when you were in the younger days of the consultant. Yeah, where you did a lot of work and a lot of research, and there's definitely theft of intellectual property during that. So, I mean, again, the good consultants are going to have the focus completely on you. They're not going to have a long-ass proposal that, tells you all the solutions before they've even had a chance to learn more about your specific situation. Here's another thing. Consultants, how can a consultant help me? They don't know nothing about my business. Yeah, we do, because businesses aren't that different, but you might want to have somebody that's at least worked in your industry or peripheral. In reality, it doesn't much matter, but that's a pretty hard sell. But it does help sometimes to have industry knowledge. We're a B2B agency, for example. We work with companies that sell services. It doesn't mean that we can't help a manufacturer. It's just that's not where the bulk of our experience is. But it's what counts is, that all that background knowledge and that repetition of working with companies like yours. There's no other company exactly like yours in the universe. Okay, so yours is very unique, and the process is the same, the information, the problems that we see are the same, but each client, that granular detail is what we need to understand. You don't have to teach us about how your kind of company generally goes to market, but we need to know how you specifically go to market, right? How do you squeeze the most juice out of one of these guys? Do you like all the accents? I just spontaneously.
I'm enjoying that, and I suppose you're probably thinking,
why do I do that?
Canadian. I should give my Canadian accent, being up in North.
Well, that's probably a real stretch for you.
Yeah. So your question is how can we turn this to benefit the viewers that are maybe hiring a consultant? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, assuming they're still with us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Well, the ones that like your accent are still with us.
All right.
There you go. To me, I think, there's lots of tips that I'll give, but I'll give you a couple, and then I'd like to hear what you have to say too. In my opinion, I think it's got to be a good fit, and we could have a whole, conversation on a podcast about a good fit, but, you got to feel right about who you're hiring too. And so if you have any nervousness about it, or it just doesn't feel right, my recommendation is probably not a good fit.
Uh,
Hire
so,
somebody.
so try to find somebody that's a good fit, not just from hey, this guy's a super expert, but is it a
Right.
fit with your company's culture? Is it a fit with? So I do something that I think is somewhat unique. It's equally important to me if I'm working with a founder. What's the company's objectives? What is your personal objectives? Right.
Yes.
My job is to make those line up. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
And there's a hierarchy of loyalty. Company first, founder second, everybody else after that, right? And so one thing I wrote down was provide the necessary information and resources.
Mhm.
Give the consultant what they need to do their job. Don't be
Exactly.
trying to hide stuff on, I ain't giving you no P&L. I'm not giving you the login to our Google Analytics or, making you a administrator, whatever it is. Why? Why am I here?
Yes.
Okay.
So I like that. So give them the tool. Besides the good fit, make sure you trust them enough and give them the good tools to actually do their job, is what you're saying.
To do the
too.
job or job.
Yeah.
They do, they thrive on information, right? You can't err on the side of too much information, right? If you've been in the business for a while, you've gotten very good at drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
Because in reality, a busy consultant might be drinking from 4 fire hoses at once. Okay,
Yeah.
you don't see that, right? Because you're the most important hose in the world. What? Oh, but behind the scenes looks very different. I mean, there are systems to keep track of that information. It's all confidential. I mean, all of these things. So the other thing you mentioned, trust, that gets earned over time, right? So
Yeah.
set realistic time frames.
Yeah.
Don't look at a relationship with it. Now, there are some types of consultants that are a short hit, right? And they're out,
Yeah.
whatever. But if it's a strategic advisor on that level, look at it like a longer term relationship where they're going to be there. You're going to be able to pivot when needed. You're going to have regular contact points. I wrote down establish clear communication channels. Right?
Definitely. And channels and timing, Pete, because I
And
think
timing. Okay.
how often are we going to talk and what are we going to do? Because I think that that's really important.
Well, right. How often are we going to talk? This is always excruciating for everyone, whether it's the agency, the consultant, or the client. But those weekly little 15-minute, 20-minute touch-ins,
Yeah.
nobody likes it. Crucial to success. You must do it.
I really think so. And I mean, that's where things those are where things start to go wrong. If you're going to start missing those, because it might be a little thing that somebody has a question, but if you don't have those conversations, then those little things start to get to be big things, and then you start to erode that
Well,
trust.
in communication channels, we had a client that used no less than 6 different channels to communicate. So you'd be like, where was that message? Was it on Slack? Was it on Basecamp? Was it in my email? What was it, a text? Right?
Yeah.
The chances are that some critical piece of information, question or something, they're going to miss. Somebody's going to miss it. And for the consultant, it's usually something that there's something really important the client needs by tomorrow, and they send it via Messenger and Facebook. And then you don't get it somehow, and now you're in trouble, right? So be open to new ideas and perspectives, right? A consultant is going to challenge what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
What did Mark Twain say?
Yeah. Yeah. It's what we know that just ain't so.
What? Yeah, the
And if you're
long-held
because
beliefs could be wrong, mostly right,
or
but
if you're a basketball fan and you remember John Wooden, who used to be the winningest coach at UCLA, he said, "I can't believe all I've learned after I thought I knew it all."
yes, but that's almost at the center of why you might bring in, when we talk about consulting, again, loaded word, but consultant, advisor, any people that sell expertise, right? What does that mean? What are they selling, expertise? Well, they're selling the repetition of seeing the problems and the situations again and again and again, sometimes in the thousands of times. It's hard to get this
Exactly.
across to people.
Yes.
But these the expertise is in the form of advice, of recommendations. People, what are the deliverables? Would you want a big report What if I could tell you the answer to solve your $10 million problem in one sentence? Do I still need to write a 50-page report for you, right? So trust their expertise, regular feedback, and be open to things that really might, look, there are sometimes things that we introduce that sound 180 degrees the wrong thing to the client. Now, this is a client that's struggling their ass off with that one thing. So my wonderful coach also taught me to say, how's that working out for you? Right? But she had more like a gentler delivery than me, apparently. But I think that's really important. And then monitor the process. I said earlier,
well,
if they don't want to be measured, that's a red flag.
Right. Yeah. I was just going to say, if you got your SMART goals, it kind of gives a blueprint for the client to be able to see how are we doing along the way,
I mean, we even have certain documents that keep track of dates and due and who and what, and it's just a constant keeping up with that.
Yeah. If I can mention two more things to make sure that relationship is good.
Sure, absolutely.
That's going to be
plenty of time.
Okay. One of the things is, I'm just going to mention it. It's the B word, and that's the budget. And so a lot of times people will play games with that. And, I'd rather somebody be honest and tell me what they've got to deal with so that we can try to make it work versus, well, you tell me, because it's like, if you're going to end up playing games, it's going to probably end up costing you a lot more in the long run. If you tell us up front, we're probably going to be able to help solve your problem within a reasonable period of time.
We're putting that document online for people to download. You get a link in the comments to it was 9 things. It is now 10 things. Share the budget, or at least a range, and I'll write a little bit about that. But yeah, give us a sense, right? Because look, we don't want to waste your time talking to us, and we're not even close to being a match. We just had this happen. I had a company that was very, very interested in doing a full, overarching plan, which really was the right thing to do. And they were very concerned about their message and how they were languaging things and this sort of thing. And we spent a lot of time. They went silent for a while, and then they came back and they said, hey, we basically, and in so many words, we want the exact same thing that we expected from the plan, but we just want you to review this deck. And I made the mistake of not getting an understanding of what kind of budget they were looking for. So, of course, in order for me to evaluate a deck even, first of all, it assumes that I know something, but I can evaluate it and help you make whatever your argument is, however flawed, better. But I'm still going to have to ask you all the questions about your company, about your market, about your target audience, all the same things we would do for a plan. They wanted the same output as what a plan would do, but in their minds, that was worth a couple $100 review of a deck. We didn't get that project for some reason.
Well, you didn't probably want to take it, if that's the case.
Well, I think what they didn't understand that the fee that was represented real labor and time that went into It sounds easy. Could you give us some feedback on this deck? Well, if you want feedback you can use, it's going to take time, but more importantly, what is it worth? What is that expertise worth in dollars to your company?
Yeah.
What if it helped you raise your close rate by 3 points? Worth a few grand to you, right?
Yeah.
All right. You had a couple more?
The only other one, and you might disagree with me on this, and I guess part of it's going to depend on the engagement, but like one of the things that I have a real problem with is when I'm hired and I'm working harder to try to solve the client's problem than they're willing to work themselves. And that means a whole lot of things. It could be they're not willing to do the implementation. Maybe it means they didn't get me the material I need, but it's like when I step back at the end of the day and I go, you know what, I'm working so much harder on deadlines and everything else than they are. That's when I step back again and go, maybe this isn't the right relationship for us. So to me, that's an issue, but maybe not for you. But
well, you might have anger problem. No, that's a legitimate thing, and that might need to be number 11 on the list actually. But a good consultant's going to help. I mean, to summarize it up, there's things that you can do to leverage bringing expertise into your organization. It might be expertise you're missing. It might be that you need the objectivity. You have all the expertise in the world you need. You might need a capable pair of hands to do something that's fairly technical. You might need a facilitator, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a train wreck, and you have control over that.
You've been listening to the B2B Marketing Mindset with Pete Monfre and Bill Lowell. Add to the conversation by commenting, sharing, and liking. And don't forget to subscribe and check out the links in the comments. Learn more at b2bmarketingmindset.com.